All right, let's go. Welcome to eCom Raw Reality episode 32. Let's move the camera a little here. And in this one, I want us to talk about products because e-commerce is all about products. Yeah, it's also about marketing, post-purchase, Facebook ads, and so on. But honestly, in most cases, it is about a product, right? Because that's what people actually pay for. They might pay extra for marketing, but even if they pay that little, let's say extra for marketing, if the product sucks, then eventually there's no business long term, right? And it's true. Drop shippers, people who just want a quick buck, they will actually just create one store, one product that's maybe shitty. They will sell it with some Facebook ads, but still, it's not 2017 anymore. It's not 2015. Facebook ads are more sophisticated. People in general are more sophisticated, right? That's why there's a trend right now with products for a few years at least, products that are good for you because people are becoming more aware. People are actually becoming more intelligent, right? Because this is something that I was thinking about even like 10 years ago, right? The fact that it's not like people were stupid, right? Before in terms of like health and all of that, right? It's just that we didn't really have all of the information, right? Sometimes maybe your grandmother, parents, someone told you at one point that maybe sugar is good for you, or at least that's what I was told around 20 years ago or so, and that's not true, right? However, can you actually blame someone for having bad information if they were just not born at the right time? Not really. But that's why we need to look at what's happening now in 2025. What worked 10 years ago doesn't necessarily work today, or at least not when it comes to products, because people right now have so many options, and it's true that some also have more disposable income. But if you want to build a business, for example, in the e-commerce space, then you definitely need a good product. And let's think about it logically. Let's look at Netflix, which is one of those companies which blew everything up when it comes to being a small fish, right? They were against Blockbuster, and I don't want to get into details with the story and all of that, but like Blockbuster was huge back then. And then Netflix, as a small company, they became a 300, I think right now, $1 billion company, and their plan is actually to get to 1 trillion. And that's crazy. That's crazy because if you think about it, they are just selling you entertainment and movies. I mean, personally, I don't even find Netflix as interesting, as valuable, as helpful in general. Even I don't find it as good of a product as YouTube. For example, I see YouTube 10 times better. And my time is actually exactly dedicated, I would say 100 times more to YouTube than to Netflix. Because personally, I watch maybe 1 or 2 shows from Netflix a year because I feel like they're just a waste of time, right? In most cases, like you can actually see more or less the same thing on YouTube. Maybe not the story of, let's say, a movie, TV series, cartoon, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that if it's highly produced, right, it's necessarily more helpful, higher quality, or anything like that, right? It probably doesn't even help you. It's just like, would you rather buy Hermes bag that's maybe 10K? I don't know the prices, but I'm just saying here, 10K? Or would you rather get, let's say, a bag that's $100, 100 euros, and more or less it will do the same thing, except the status thing, right? And that is where we all decide where we want to spend our money. Is it like health? Is it like to impress other people? Is it to impress us? But honestly, in most cases, rarely you buy something really expensive where there are diminishing returns just for like yourself, right? Meaning that, for example, if you buy a Ferrari instead of a Porsche, instead of a, I don't know, Ford or whatever car is actually medium priced, then it's clear that you don't really buy it like just for yourself, because you won't even use the features from that, Like, will you actually use the features from a Ferrari to the max? Most likely not. Like, even with Apple, when they do marketing, right? And let's look at Apple. Let's not forget that a lot of what Apple does is marketing. That's why they are so huge, right? But at the same time, their product is not that far off from Android. So this is a clear example of two products being very similar. You could say that iOS is more simple and so on, but honestly, like if you spend 2 days on an Android, it's the same thing, more or less. Like you have the same features, and actually on Android, you do have more freedom. So you can actually make it seem more like an iOS device, right? If you have better specs on both. So all of Apple's success, to some extent, it's like, at least at this point, it's 80% actual marketing and 20% product. And that's also because Android, iOS, they both have good products at this point, right? It's not like they're a Windows phone. Windows phone, yeah, that was a bad product. That's why it didn't stay for a long time. And this is a perfect example that we can look at. And I'm also talking about the bigger examples here in terms of tech, because with e-commerce, we are talking about smaller products, a smaller market, but it's easier to understand when we give these examples of these huge companies out there, because they are also offering a product, but they are also doing a lot of marketing. And you do need a mix of both. And in most cases, what you need to make sure is that the product doesn't suck, right? Because over time, look at Windows Phone. It's not here anymore. And there's a reason. And that's exactly the product. That's what happens when you don't have a good product. And it's the same in e-commerce. If you sell a product that people won't rate at, let's say, 4 stars, 5 stars, then other people won't have the confidence to buy from you. So you're basically shooting yourself in the foot, more or less, if you don't have at least a decent product, right? And that means that you don't want to sell any kind of Temu stuff, right? Because personally, I bought from Temu like so many stuff in the past year, let's say, just to try it out, right? I bought different things. I can't even remember what, so you can see how useful they are. Maybe this light from the back here, the blue one. Probably I bought that, so that was one useful thing, right? But the ratio is pretty crazy here. It's one item out of like 15 or 20, right? So you buy 20, you get one that's actually useful. And of course, not saying that Temu's products or offering isn't good, because it is cheaper price, right? So of course you won't get something that's going to be like a $1,000 phone, right? You can expect for $5 something that's like at the same value as something that's 1000x the price, right? So I think we can understand that. But why I'm saying this is also because right now it has become more popular to sell, let's say, on a subscription basis, especially in the health space, where you sell maybe gummies, which honestly, like, I would say they aren't as good in general. Like, we could live without gummies, you know, that's the main thing. Like, I'm not saying that gummies are useless, because maybe there are some people that wouldn't otherwise take creatine or multivitamins, but let's be honest, like, if you're an adult, like, can't you take some creatine? You are actually saving money. You are actually saving money, like, for your future, because when you buy anything out there, you are actually selling your time for that, right? Like, you work 1 hour for, let's say, what's the minimum wage in the US? Maybe 20. So for $20, and this varies country by country, but let's say $20, you work for an hour, and then you go buy food. That's like $20. Although in most cases more like 10, right? But still, basically that means you sell 30 minutes of your time for that meal, right? And that's one way to think about whatever we purchase, because I mean, if you are also in the e-commerce space, you know that basically this space exists because most of the people buy shit they don't need. And that doesn't mean that the products are bad. It's just the consumer behavior, and we know that marketing has an effect on all of us, because I can just look around me and I can see a lot of stuff that I probably don't need. Even I do have here a Dallas Mavericks shirt, right? A team I like, but it's not like I had to buy one of these shirts, right? But it was nice to have, and it just reminds me of the fact that, all right, I did have enough disposable income at one point, and this is how I show my, let's say, support for the team, even though, like, who cares, right? It's just like a mental thing for myself, but otherwise it's not like it's really useful. But the product is good, that I can say. The product is good, so that's something that matters, at least for the seller. So because I don't want to make this way too long, that was the main thing that I wanted to point out, the fact that in general we do want to play long games, right? That's why it's really never ideal to just try to do something that's beneficial in the short term, but then in the long term it kind of hurts you, right? Same with the reputation. You can't really or shouldn't, although who am I to say you shouldn't do something? But let's be honest, if you look at all the people who have success, right, at least most of them, like 95% plus of them, or that are happy, or that are rich, wealthy, and so on, right? Not like gambling or Forex and all of that, right? Most of them have had like decades or many years of hard work, consistency, doing the right thing, and yeah, even when it comes to morality, right? Doing the right things, because we kind of know there's like some things that are more moral than others, and I mean, that's why we have police outside, right? And an actual government that needs to set rules for a country, because otherwise who knows what would happen, right? But not to get too much into like politics and all of that, because we're talking about e-commerce, right? Buying something online and then getting that stuff shipped to you, so it's much simpler. But if we think of all the other things that are related to it, especially the economy, because the economy functions on us consuming. That's what's making most of the world actually go round, right? The fact that someone buys cigarettes, someone buys alcohol, someone buys gum with nicotine, like myself. So as we can see, that's why I would say there's so much money flowing, right? Because we actually do buy so many things that we don't need, but ideally they are at least good products, right? And in the e-commerce space, we've probably seen along the way many things that shouldn't even exist. And some people have made money with those, but in most cases, then you have to go to the next one. So better to build something that you know will actually last and that you can also be proud of. And same with most of us that are marketing, right? We do want to work, personally, I do want to work with brands that actually have a good product, that I can easier, let's say, sell through marketing, through email marketing, through paid ads, through whatever else there might need to be at that point. So with all of that being said, that's pretty much the brain dump for today. Hope you enjoyed it. If yes, you can leave a like. If you have anything you want to comment, you can also do it down below. Comments are open. And until next time, as always, peace out.